Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. One more edition of Off the Top Rope before I hit the hay and, get tired of doing all these videos. But at the same time, it's WrestleMania week and there's a lot of stuff to digest. Probably have more content throughout the week. Okay. So I need to, you know, get on my soapbox here for a second and get up on my pedestal and my perch and basically just dunk on all of you AEW sickos who are trying to use the main event of WrestleMania between John Cena and Cody Rhodes as some sort of referendum on the fact that AEW is somehow better than WWE. Because I've already seen people, and this is actually a real tweet, that people are actually saying that the Revolution main event between John Moxley and Cope, universally painted as one of the worst main events in pay-per-view history, is better than what we saw with John Cena and Cody Rhodes. John Cena and Cody Rhodes was bad. A lot of it was because the build and everything that was built up to it, we did not get a payoff. Nobody cared about that match. It was overbooked nonsense. There was a stupid cash in. And then if you want to take it to the Swerve Strickland match at Dynasty, like, guys, just worry about your own company. And just because, Triple H had a bad situation happen with him in that main event, and I've talked about it enough on this channel, I am convinced that The Rock just shows up whenever he wants. They write sort of a story for him, and then if they pay it off or not. Remember when he showed up at Bad Blood? Remember when he showed up at Bad Blood? Had that just went out there for like 5 seconds and counted? That's never been paid off. There's such a disconnect, and because The Rock has so much power, he can do whatever the fuck he wants and walks in, even if it doesn't make any sense to the story. And that must be frustrating for Triple H. So before you guys just start to dunk on, and some people say, it's Triple H should be more authoritative. I was like, guys, it's The Rock. It's The Rock. So like, it's just like there is a power struggle, I think, within WWE at least for who has creative say. And basically WWE at some point, whether it be Nick Khan or somebody, is going to have to put their foot down and say, hey, listen, like, and they're making enough money that they won't be able to say it at this point. But if you start to disconnect the fans, it's going to become an issue. But one thing I'm not going to have amongst this tribalistic mindset is for some people to just act like, it's because it was the main event of WrestleMania. And it's because the story did not match what the build was. And that can be disappointing. And it happens all the time in professional wrestling. But AEW had 2 opportunities to end the worst storyline of all time in the main event of their pay-per-views and had overbooked nonsensical finishes that gave the fans the direct result that they did not want. Fans wanted to see John Cena win his 17th world title as a heel because that's what's good for business. The finish and how it ended was completely inaccurate. And the fact that The Rock wasn't there and the fact it was just Travis Scott as a run-in is the problem with it. That doesn't mean AEW is somehow better at booking when their last 2 shows. The fuck have you guys been watching? They had a misfire. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to bat 1,000 in baseball or anything like that. You're not going to shoot 100% from the field unless you're making all dunks and everything. Stuff like this happens. It's because it was the last match of WrestleMania 41 it was the last thing that you saw. And what have I always said on this channel and in this segment? The last image is always going to kind of leave how you feel about a show. The fact that, a lot of WrestleMania 41 Sunday was really good kind of helped it. And when you also compare that main event to what started the show and also what closed last night, it makes, it look weak. And, was it a risk, having a nearly 50-year-old John Cena who barely wrestles in a main event match against Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship? Yes, but it's John Cena. So you were going to roll with that, and I'm convinced that was always the plan. John Cena, Cody Rhodes was always the plan. And John Cena was probably going to turn heel as a part of this. But The Rock's involvement, I think, was probably just a last-minute thing. When he came in and announced the WrestleMania 42 card, he came up with the Soldier Soul thing. They did that. And, basically we had him for 2 weeks, and that's it. And he went away. I'm convinced that was it. And, maybe they'll try to formulate and say that this was always a plan, but the frustrating part is, like I said, you don't get stuff paid off. What happened with AEW in their respect was, hey, a storyline that everybody wanted to get paid off and wanted to be end and be as a pivot, and they didn't do it. And it was in a really spectacularly bad and overbooked, nonsensical match. At least with this one, we got a conclusion that we wanted with John Cena winning the WWE Championship. And we're going to get heel Cena in his final run, which is great. I think that's admittedly great. The conclusion is great. How we got there and the finish to that match is what's going to be lasting in our minds. And the fact that the match was kind of a clunker and kind of like, it was what it was. It was a John Cena match in 2025. The guy doesn't wrestle anymore. What are we expecting? So whereas where you have Adam Copeland in his 50s and John Moxley up there in age, who are contracted to work full time, put on a stink bomb of a match, and then Swerve Strickland, like they plotted around. It's like they're two completely different things. So I hate the way that this fan base has kind of just pitted itself against each other. And some people think I lean heavy WWE. The reason why I do is because WWE just makes a lot more sense. And they don't have a lot of misfires, and they try to tell good stories. AEW does not do that, and the wrestlers kind of book themselves into a corner. But this is an example of just creative control getting out of control. And this is different because it's The Rock. It's the guy who's on the board of directors, has like what? He has like 40 million or 400 million Instagram followers, something crazy. I forget the number all the time. I know I did it in a video, but he has a crazy amount of Instagram followers. He's one of the most paid actors in the world. He's one of the most known people out there in the face of the universe. Of course, you're going to say, "Yeah, Rock, you want to come in?" Sure. You try telling The Rock no. But this is becoming an issue. It really is, because the more often that this happens, because let's not forget, and I've talked about this in other videos. Let's not forget what The Rock has done or tried to do in the last 2 years. He tried to ruin Cody's story. Remember that. He tried to ruin Cody's story, and if not for a fan outrage, who knows what the hell would have happened. And then he has two ready-made storylines, does an amazing build to WrestleMania 40, and wrestles neither of those matches and doesn't even show up at WrestleMania 41. Joe Hendry has appeared on more premium live events than Rock has this year. That's a fact. That is a fact. A TNA wrestler has appeared more than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I understand Dwayne's not a contract wrestler, but still, The Rock is on the TKO board of directors. You would think, especially with, his notoriety and whatever, and the importance of the storyline, that he would bother to show up, but he didn't. And that's the way it is. So, but this whole AEW thing and all these fans just saying, "Hey, AEW is the best wrestler," like, all this other shit. Guys, come on. There was still, the crowd was very entertaining for that match. It had some good moments in it. It just had a flat finish that felt very anticlimactic. We knew John Cena was going to win, but the guy who we thought was going to win won. And that's the big difference between the last two AEW main events that have happened. So that's my thoughts there. I'm going to try and get some sleep. It's been a long weekend. I will see you guys later this week on the channel. Thanks so much. I'll see you. Bye.